It is the year 1903, and an extraordinary man, my friend Theodore Roosevelt, stands upon the precipice of the Grand Canyon. In those days, there were men of small vision, men who saw the majesty of the Creator's handiwork and thought only of how they might parcel it out for spas and hotels, turning a sublime monument of nature into a common marketplace of greed. They sought a Disneyland of the environment before such a word existed, seeking to trade the eternal for the ephemeral. But Roosevelt stood firm. He looked upon that vast expanse and spoke words that created a tipping point for the soul of our nation. He said, "Leave it as it is. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it." Consider the weight of those words. The world would be a vastly different and much poorer place today had he not possessed the character to speak them. He understood that wealth is not merely in the gold we extract, but in the beauty we preserve for the generations yet unborn. Fast forward 30 years to his kinsman, Franklin Roosevelt, in the dark winter of 1933. The nation was gripped by a great crisis of spirit, a depression not just of pockets, but of hearts. He stood before a frightened people and asserted his firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Once again, the world was altered by the power of the spoken word. In my 60 years of observing the empire of business and the leaders of men, I have come to realize that there are 7 secrets held by the great communicators of history, secrets that distinguish the leader from the follower. It is my firm conviction that every human soul, no matter how humble their origin, possesses the capacity to be a great speaker. Your words can be the lever that moves the world. Your essence can be the light that guides the weary. The first of these secrets concerns the words themselves. It is a curious truth that while we labor over our manuscripts, words alone account for but a tiny fraction, perhaps 7%, of the actual impact one soul has upon another. You may have the vocabulary of a scholar, but if the spirit is absent, the words are but sounding brass. It is the tone of the voice, the variation, the enthusiasm, the genuine love and passion for the subject that carries 38% of your influence. And finally, there is the language of the body. Do you look your fellow man in the eye with the honesty of a Scot, or do you look over his head, disconnected from the very brother you seek to move? These are the 3 pathways: the word, the voice, and the carriage. A fourth secret lies in the avoidance of vanity. I have seen many a young man enter the business world thinking that to be smart is to drench his listeners in data and dry statistics. They throw out mountains of content, hoping to prove their worth. But remember, the words are but 7%. What truly matters is the headline, the one singular moral truth you wish to leave behind. What is the one thing you want them to carry home in their hearts? That is the hallmark of greatness. Now, let me speak to those of you who feel the cold hand of anxiety when called to the podium. It is said that nearly half the world is terrified of public speaking, so much so that men of great potential turn down opportunities to lead because they are scared. Why is this? In my experience, it is because we have forgotten what public speaking truly is. We think of it as a performance, as if we were actors upon a stage. If you approach it as an actor, you will be 100% false and 0% yourself. The true definition of public speaking is nothing more than having a sincere conversation from your heart about something for which you feel an authentic passion. I want you to take the word speech and strike it from your vocabulary. Great men do not give speeches. They do not make presentations. They have a conversation with their people. It is a circle of mutual trust. We are all part of a great web, connected to every other soul by the common interest of our humanity. I recall a story of a royal personage, much beloved, who once confessed her terror of the platform. She looked at her husband and envied his ability to stand and tell a joke, seemingly unfazed. I told her then that the prince did not have what she possessed. What she had was the power to touch the world on a purely human level. All that is required is to share from the heart, that great beating organ of human sympathy, and the people will feel you, they will know you. Even if your voice trembles, they will connect with your truth. That is 1,000 times more effective than a polished joke from a cold heart. The sixth secret is to understand that we communicate through many languages at once. We have 5 senses, and these translate into the different languages of the mind. Speak only one, and you will be forgotten. Speak 2, and you may be average. But speak all 4, the visual energy, the auditory story, the analytical truth, and the kinesthetic connection, and you will rock the world. You must give every man in the audience something his particular soul can grasp. You need the visual, the energy and life of a man like the great orators who paint pictures with their very presence. You need the auditory, the ability to weave details into a narrative that moves the blood. You need the analytical, the foundation of credibility, the facts and figures that prove there is substance behind the charm. And finally, you must have the kinesthetic, that poetic, deep connection that resides inside us all, the Ali or Morgan Freeman of the soul that makes a man feel the truth in his very bones. Finally, the 7th secret, the one that can stand alone and still change the course of history, is authentic passion. What is it that is so compelling, so visceral, that you simply must share it? This is not an intellectual exercise, it is a spiritual necessity. Think of Lou Gehrig in 1939. He did not move the borders of nations, but he moved the boundaries of the human spirit. Diagnosed with a fatal malady, standing in Yankee Stadium, he was petrified. He wanted to back away, but his manager whispered, "Lou, they are all here for you." And he stepped up and said, "Today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." That sense of gratitude in the face of ruin is what we call character. The following year, Winston Churchill stood before the House of Commons. He had nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. The world was saved because of that level of conviction and resolve. Or consider John F. Kennedy, who challenged a nation not to ask what their country could do for them, but what they could do for their country. He was a man of vision who committed us to the moon, not because we knew how to get there, but because our authentic passion for progress demanded it. He spoke of metals not yet invented, and heat half of that of the sun, and by the sheer force of his tipping point words, he made the impossible a reality. Whether it is Dr. King dreaming of a nation where children are judged by the content of their character, or a humble congresswoman standing for the sanctity of the Constitution, these moments happen because someone dared to speak from their Dharma, their unique God-given purpose. So I ask you, are you afraid? If so, you are in good company. But the way over that fear is to see your life as a conversation. Ask yourself, what am I passionate about? What is the unique DNA of my soul that I must share to make this world a better place? You have within you the energy of 1,000 suns. Every person I have ever employed, from the lad sweeping the floor to the manager of the works, has the ability to break through and create a tipping point. I encourage you, step through the fear, share your passion, share who you are authentically, for in doing so you fulfill the highest gospel, the gospel of a life well lived and a world made better. When we consider the weight of our influence upon the world, We must approach the platform not with the vanity of a peacock, but with the solemnity of a trustee. In my volume, The Gospel of Wealth, I have long maintained that the man of wealth is but a temporary administrator for the public good. So it is with the man of words. Your voice, your ideas, and your ability to move the hearts of your neighbors are trust funds of the Spirit, and you shall be held to a strict accounting for how you distribute this capital. If you use your speech to sow the seeds of discord, or to distract the simple-minded with data that lacks a moral compass, you are a fraudulent trustee. But if you speak to elevate, to clarify, and to lead the way toward a union of hearts, then you are performing the highest service known to man. Let us return to the secret of the word. You were told that words constitute but 7% of your impact. Do not mistake this for an invitation to be careless with your language. In the business world, as in the political arena, a single word can be the difference between a strike and a settlement, between a panic and a period of prosperity. When I speak of the road to business success, I often tell young men that the most important word in their vocabulary must be integrity. You may have the enthusiasm of a revivalist and the carriage of a king, but if the 7% of your words are found to be untrustworthy, the remaining 93% will crumble like a house built upon the sand. Great speakers like Lou Gehrig or Winston Churchill were not merely masters of tone, they were men whose lives were the collateral for their promises. When Gehrig said he was lucky, he was not reciting a script, he was auditing the accounts of his soul and finding a surplus of gratitude. Now consider the conversation versus the speech. Why is it that the speech so often fails where the conversation succeeds? It is because a speech is an act of force, while a conversation is an act of cooperation. In the industrial world, we have learned, often through bitter experience, that force and pressure only defeat their own ends. Whether it be the relation between Britain and her colonies, or the relation between the manager and the laborer, permanent success can only be found through mutual trust and personal relations. When you stand before an audience, do not seek to conquer them. Do not seek to perform for them as if you were a trained animal in a circus. Instead, seek to consult with them. Bring them into your confidence. Share your authentic passion as if you were sitting by a fireside with a trusted friend. This is what I call the mastery of the personal relation. It is the secret that allowed a timid princess to move the world. She did not lecture the world from a throne, but spoke to it from the common ground of human suffering and sympathy. I must also speak to you about the analytical language, the auditory digital that was mentioned. In The Empire of Business, I advise young men that they must master the details of their trade. You cannot lead a great corporation if you do not know the cost of a single bolt or the yield of a bushel of ore. Likewise, a speaker who lacks statistics and facts is like a captain who lacks a chart. People may be charmed by your voice, but they will not follow you into the storm if they suspect there is no there. You must provide the foundation of credibility. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon, he did not merely speak of dreams and glory. He spoke of new metal alloys, of precision better than the finest watch, and of speeds over 25,000 miles per hour. He gave the people the data to anchor their hope. He showed them that his vision was not a mirage, but a blueprint. Yet, even with the most perfect blueprint, a building will not rise without the kinesthetic heat of human labor. This is the Barry White or James Earl Jones quality, the deep, resonant connection that makes a man feel the truth in his marrow. In my own life, I have found that the most powerful moments of communication were not found in the boardrooms of New York, but in the manual labor of the works, where I could look a man in the eye and feel the common interest that bound us together. We are not mere cogs in a machine. We are a web of living, breathing souls. When you speak, you must tap into this mysterious sense of connection. You must recognize, as Albert Einstein did, that there is a lofty structure to the universe that our minds can barely grasp, yet our hearts can feel. You may ask, Mr. Carnegie, how do I find this passion? How do I overcome the fear that paralyzes 41% of my fellow men? The answer lies in your Dharma, your divine purpose. I have always said that the man who dies rich dies disgraced, but I also say that the man who lives without a purpose lives in poverty. You must find that thing which is so compelling that the fear of remaining silent becomes greater than the fear of speaking. When Lou Gehrig was backing away from the microphone, he was not thinking of his legacy. He was thinking of his friends. He saw the faces in the stands, the men and women who had cheered for him through the years, and his passion for them overcame his terror of the moment. He realized that he was not there to give a speech, but to give thanks. If you are terrified of the platform, it is because you are thinking too much of yourself and not enough of your service. You are worried about how you look, how your voice sounds, or if you will make a mistake. This is the vanity of the ego. Shift your focus to the gospel of service. Ask yourself, how can my words help the man in the third row? How can my passion provide a tipping point for a soul that is on the verge of despair? When you become a vessel for a truth that is larger than yourself, the fear will evaporate like the morning mist over the Monongahela. You will find that you have 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy at your disposal because you are no longer speaking for Andrew Carnegie, but for the universal mind that seeks to improve the condition of the race. I have seen the tipping points of history. I have seen how a few words from a resolute leader can turn the tide of a war or the direction of an industry. But these leaders were not born great speakers. They became great by humbly grasping at the secrets of character and influence. They understood that the visual energy of their presence, the auditory power of their stories, the analytical weight of their facts, and the kinesthetic depth of their connection were all but tools in the hands of authentic passion. Do not be discouraged if your first attempts are clumsy. When I was a young bobbin boy in the cotton mill, I did not have the vocabulary of an emperor. I had only the persistent effort and the unwavering aim to better myself and my family. I learned to speak by listening, by observing the men who moved others, and by studying the laws of nature that govern human interaction. I learned that cooperation and trust multiply results, and that financial independence is earned slowly through service, patience, and mastery. These same laws apply to the platform. You must earn the right to be heard through the service of your words and the patience of your preparation. In the parts to follow, I shall delve deeper into the specific mechanics of these secrets, how to weave the auditory story with the analytical fact, and how to maintain the visual energy of a leader, even when the terrors of fear are knocking at the door of your heart. But for now, I leave you with this. You are a free man, a citizen of the world, and a child of eternity. You have a dream, and that dream deserves a voice. Do not let the nameless, unreasoning terror of the crowd rob the world of your unique essence. Step forward into the light, have the conversation, share the passion. For in the union of hearts found in great communication, we find the very promised land of our human potential. In my long journey from the humble weaving looms of Dunfermline to the roaring blast furnaces of Pittsburgh, I have learned that the universe is governed by laws as immutable as the properties of iron ore. Whether one is refining steel or refining the human spirit through speech, success depends upon a persistent effort guided by an unwavering aim. We have discussed the vehicles of communication, the word, the voice, and the carriage, but we must now look deeper into the architecture of the mind itself. We must understand how to harmonize our message with the very lofty structure of the world, as my friend Albert Einstein attempted to grasp with his own brilliant mind. The great speakers of history do not merely talk, they build. They understand that every listener is a complex edifice composed of different rooms. There is the room of reason, where the analytical and digital data reside. There is the room of memory, where the auditory stories are kept. And there is the room of the heart, where the kinesthetic and visual energies ignite the fires of action. If you wish to be a master of the empire of business or a leader of men, you must learn to enter every room. You must learn to speak all 4 languages of communication. If you speak only the language of the bookkeeper, dry, cold, and statistical, you may convince the mind, but you will never move the man. Conversely, if you speak only the language of the poet, all passion and no precision, you may excite the nerves for a moment, but you will leave no lasting tipping point in the reality of the world. Let us examine the language of energy, the visual. In the world of industry, energy is the steam that drives the piston. In the world of oratory, it is the spirit that radiates from your very person. When I see a young man entering my office with a slouching gait and a downcast eye, I do not see a future partner. I see a man who has already surrendered to the terrors of fear. But when a man enters with the visual confidence of one who knows his worth, not through vanity, but through service, patience, and mastery, he commands the room before he has uttered a single syllable. This energy is not something that can be faked. It is the outward reflection of an inward truth. It is what I call the personal relation. It is the ability to look a fellow man in the eye and signal through your very posture that you are an ally, not a competitor, a brother, not a stranger. Consider the language of auditory, the art of the story. In my volume, The Empire of Business, I often use anecdotes to illustrate the road to business success. Why? Because a story is a vehicle that carries a moral truth through the gates of the mind more easily than a raw command. When Ronald Reagan spoke, he understood this law of human nature. He did not merely lecture on the virtues of freedom, he told the stories of the men and women who lived it. He translated the mysterious and abstract into the living word. To be a great speaker, you must become a collector of truths. You must observe the world around you, the struggles of the laborer, the triumphs of the inventor, the quiet dignity of the parent, and weave these observations into a tapestry of sound that resonates with the experience of your audience. But we must never neglect the analytical. I have known many charming men who could speak for hours without saying anything of substance. They are like a brightly painted engine that has no boiler. In the competitive world of the Standard Oil crowd or the steel industry, integrity is synonymous with accuracy. If you tell me you can produce a ton of steel for a certain price and your analytical data is flawed, your charm will not save you from the judgment day of the ledger. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon mission, he was at his most persuasive when he was at his most technical. By describing the precision better than the finest watch and the heat of half the temperature of the sun, he provided the foundation of credibility. He showed the world that he was not a dreamer lost in the clouds, but a leader who had accounted for the cost of the journey. To rock the world, you must anchor your authentic passion in the bedrock of verifiable fact. Then we come to the kinesthetic, the most profound and often the most neglected of the languages. This is the language of feeling and connection. It is the Barry White of the soul, the deep vibration that tells a listener, "I am one with you." In my essays on the gospel of wealth, I have argued that the progress of the race depends upon a union of hearts. Force and pressure are the tools of the tyrant, but cooperation and trust are the tools of the leader. When you speak, you must seek this kinesthetic resonance. You must feel the common interest that exists between you and the audience. You are not a lecturer standing above them. You are a fellow traveler on the road of life. When you speak from this place of deep connection, your words take on a weight that statistics alone can never provide. They become tipping point words because they are felt as truth before they are understood as logic. The greatest secret, however, the one that transcends all mechanics, is authentic passion. In my own life, my passion was not for the accumulation of gold, for gold is but a dross, but for the empire of business as a means to elevate the race. My passion was for the libraries that would give the bobbin boy the same chance for knowledge that the prince possessed. When you have a passion that is visceral, it burns away the fear of the platform. You become like Lou Gehrig, who was the luckiest man on the face of the earth, not because he was healthy, but because he was loved and had a purpose. You become like Dr. King, who just wanted to do God's will. When you are consumed by a purpose that is effing cool or effing compelling, if I may use the modern vernacular for emphasis, the ego disappears. You are no longer worried about your performance. You are concerned only with the transmission of a vital truth. Einstein taught us that matter and energy are the same. E equals mc squared. I submit to you that in the realm of influence, word and spirit are the same. Your words are the matter, and your passion is the energy that accelerates them to the speed of light. When these are unified, you create a tipping point that can change the trajectory of a life, a corporation, or a nation. But this power requires character. You cannot have authentic passion for a lie. You cannot have a union of hearts based on deception. Your speech must be the feeble reflection of a lofty structure of personal integrity. I see many people today who are terrified of speaking. They turn down appointments, they hide their light under a bushel, and they rob the world of their unique essence. To them I say, remember Roosevelt at the Grand Canyon. Remember Churchill in the House of Commons. They were not men without fear. They were men whose Dharma, their sense of duty and passion, was greater than their fear. They understood that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. When you stand to speak, do not see an audience of critics. See a web of brothers and sisters who are waiting for a word of hope, a spark of vision, or a headline of truth. The world is waiting for your tipping point. It is waiting for the unique DNA of your soul to be expressed through the living word. Do not be an idle spectator to the dominion of the Spirit. Step forward. Master the details of your trade so you have analytical credibility. Observe the world so you have auditory stories. Connect with your fellow man so you have kinesthetic depth. And above all, find that authentic passion that makes your heart beat faster. When you do this, you will find that you are not merely giving a speech, you are fulfilling the gospel of wealth in its highest form, the distribution of the riches of the mind and spirit for the benefit of all. We are but children of eternity, and our time here is short. Let us use our voices to convert retreat into advance. Let us speak words that leave it as it is when nature is perfect, and words that change everything when justice is required. In the next part of our conversation, I shall discuss the mystery of influence and how to tap into the subconscious forces that Albert Einstein and the ancient sages understood, the forces that allow a single voice to shake the world. In my long journey from the humble weaving looms of Dunfermline to the roaring blast furnaces of Pittsburgh, I have learned that the visible world of steel and steam is but a manifestation of an invisible world of thought. Whether one is refining iron ore or refining the human spirit through the spoken word, success depends upon a persistent effort guided by an unwavering aim. We have discussed the three vehicles, the word, the voice, and the carriage, but we must now look deeper into the lofty structure of the mind itself. We must understand how to harmonize our message with the very laws of nature, as my friend Albert Einstein and the ancient sages did before us. There is a force within every human soul that is far more powerful than the intellect. It is what some call the subconscious mind, and what I refer to as the working partner of our destiny. This is the realm where our authentic passion resides, and it is the source of the 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy that Einstein described. When you stand before an audience, you are not merely addressing their conscious reason. You are attempting to move the deep, silent currents of their inner life. If you wish to be a leader in the empire of business or a champion of the gospel of wealth, you must learn to speak to this hidden power. The first secret of the subconscious is the law of sincerity. The subconscious is like a sensitive photographic plate. It records not what you say, but what you are. In the world of industry, I have often seen men try to perform or act a part to gain an advantage. They may have the analytical data correct and the visual energy polished, but if their heart is cold, the subconscious of the listener will detect the fraud. This is why I tell you to strike the word speech from your vocabulary. A speech is a performance of the conscious mind, which is often vain and deceitful. But a conversation is a meeting of two souls. When you share from your heart and your gut, you are bypassing the critical gatekeeper of the intellect and speaking directly to the subconscious mind of your fellow man. Consider the mystery of which Einstein spoke, that sense that behind everything there is a simplicity and beauty our minds cannot fully grasp. When you speak with authentic passion, you are tapping into this mystery. You are no longer an idle spectator of life, but a participant in the divine creative force. This is why a man like Lou Gehrig, facing the end of his days, could move a stadium to tears. He was not reciting a polished manuscript. He was expressing the subconscious truth of his gratitude. His words became a tipping point because they were an honest reflection of his character. Remember, integrity is the primary collateral in the market of human influence. But how do we bridge the gap between this inner passion and the outer world? We do so through the 4 languages of communication we touched upon. Let us look closer at the auditory language, the power of the story. In the empire of business, I often use the example of the bobbin boy to illustrate the road to success. Why? Because a story is a mental image that the subconscious can hold on to. Statistics are like dry dust in the wind, but a story is a living seed. When you tell a story, you are giving your audience a blueprint that their subconscious can use to build a new reality. Ronald Reagan was a master of this because he knew that the world would be a different place if people could see the truth through the eyes of another. However, the story must be anchored in analytical truth. I have known many enthusiasts who possessed great passion but lacked the foundation of credibility. They were like a locomotive with a full head of steam but no tracks to run on. In the business world, financial independence is earned slowly through service, patience, and mastery. You must know your facts. You must have the detail of a John F. Kennedy. When he spoke of the moon, he was not just being a poet, he was being an engineer of human hope. He gave the subconscious the numbers and the materials it needed to believe in the impossible. To rock the world, you must be both a dreamer and a bookkeeper. Then there is the kinesthetic connection, the union of hearts. In my essays on the gospel of wealth, I argue that force or pressure would only defeat the progress of the race. This is true in oratory as well. If you try to force your ideas upon an audience, their subconscious will instinctively rebel. But if you seek cooperation and trust, if you look into their eyes and speak as a brother, you create a resonance. This is the Barry White or Morgan Freeman quality, a deep, visceral vibration that says, we are one. We are a web of interconnected lives, and when you touch one strand with sincerity, the whole web vibrates. The greatest barrier to this mastery is fear. 41% of the world is paralyzed by it. But what is fear? It is a misuse of the subconscious. It is a nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror that we have allowed to take root in our thoughts. To overcome it, you must replace the image of failure with an image of service. Instead of asking, "What will they think of me?" ask, "How can I help them?" When your aim is unwavering and focused on the benefit of others, the subconscious will provide you with the courage you need. You will find that you have no fear of any man, because your eyes have seen the glory of a purpose greater than yourself. I see many people today who are terrified of the platform. They turn down opportunities to shake the world because they are protecting their own ego. To them, I say, you are a trustee of your talents. You have no right to hide your authentic passion. Whether it is a Texas congresswoman standing for the Constitution or a young man in a boardroom, the world needs your voice to create a tipping point. Do not let the diminution of your spirit be the result of your silence. In my own life, I had to learn these lessons through persistent effort. I was not a natural orator. I was a man of action who learned that action requires the cooperation of others, and cooperation requires the living word. I learned that words, voice tone, and body language are the three vehicles, but the spirit is the driver. I learned that financial independence and moral influence are both earned through the same laws of service and mastery. As we move forward in this lesson, I shall delve into the specific headlines of history, the words that changed the world, and show you how to craft your own tipping point messages. But for now, remember this: you are a free man, a citizen of the universe, and a child of eternity. Your voice is the instrument of your soul. Do not let the terrors of fear keep you from your Dharma. Step on to the platform of life. Have the conversation, share the passion, for in the union of hearts found in true communication, we find the promised land of our collective future. In my instructions to young men seeking the road to business success, I have always emphasized that the most precious capital a man possesses is not in his bank vault, but in his reputation for integrity. When we step upon the platform to address our fellow men, we are essentially putting our character on display. We have discussed the vehicles of communication and the deep currents of the subconscious, but now we must address the secret of the headline, the ability to distill a lifetime of service and a mountain of data into a single moral truth that the world cannot ignore. Most men of affairs make the mistake of believing that more is better. They drench their listeners in facts, figures, and technical jargon, hoping to prove their cleverness. They act as if they are in a counting house rather than a hall of human inspiration. But I tell you, the words are but 7% of your impact. What remains, what truly rocks the world, is the one thing, the singular guiding principle that you wish to leave behind. In the industrial world, we call this the unwavering aim. In the world of the spirit, it is the headline of your soul. Consider the great headlines we have reviewed in our chronological tour of human excellence. When Theodore Roosevelt stood at the Grand Canyon, he did not give a lecture on geology or the economics of tourism. He gave the world a headline: "Leave it as it is." When Franklin Roosevelt faced a collapsing economy, he did not lead with a list of banking regulations. He gave the people a headline: "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." These leaders understood that the human mind, and more importantly, the human heart, requires a rallying cry, a clear, simple, and moral direction that converts retreat into advance. If you find yourself terrified of public speaking, as 41% of your brothers and sisters are, it is likely because you have not yet found your headline. You are worried about the performance, the presentation, and the data. You are afraid of being judged on the 7%. But when you have an authentic passion for a truth that is larger than yourself, the headline becomes your shield. You are no longer giving a speech, you are delivering a message of trust. You are acting as a trustee for a great idea, and the responsibility of that trusteeship consumes the fear of the self. Let us speak plainly about this fear. It is a nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror that paralyzes needed efforts. In the business world, the man who is afraid to speak his truth is the man who remains a clerk forever. Financial independence is earned slowly through service, patience, and mastery, but it also requires the courage to stand for one's convictions. I have seen men of great talent turn down speaking appointments, refusing to shake the world because they were scared of a trembling voice or a missed word. They forget that the audience is not a jury of executioners, but a web of human beings looking for a union of hearts. The true definition of public speaking, as I have come to understand it through years of personal relations in industry, is simply having a conversation about something you are authentically passionate about. If you view it as a performance, you are an actor, and the world has little need for more actors in the serious business of life. But if you view it as a circle of cooperation, you are a leader. I want you to imagine that every person in your audience is a partner in your firm. You are not there to impress them. You are there to consult with them on the common interest of your shared humanity. I remember a conversation with a young lady of royal birth who was terrified of the public eye. She looked at those around her who could tell jokes and remain unfazed, and she felt inadequate. I told her then, and I tell you now, the unfazed man who speaks from the head alone will never create a tipping point. But the person who speaks from the heart and the gut, even with a shaking hand, will touch the world. Why? Because the kinesthetic and subconscious languages of truth are universal. People do not connect with your perfection, they connect with your essence. In my volume, The Empire of Business, I advise that concentration is the first prerequisite of success. This applies to your headline as well. What is the one truth you have earned through your persistent effort? Is it that cooperation and trust multiply results? Is it that the man who dies rich dies disgraced? Or is it that we are all allies, not dependents? Whatever your headline may be, let it be the concentration of your message. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon, his headline was, "We must be bold." He did not know how the alloys would be made or how the heat would be managed, but he knew the Dharma of the nation was to lead. He gave the analytical details to support the vision, but it was the headline that ignited the 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy in the American spirit. He created a tipping point that changed the world long after he was gone. You must ask yourself, what is my Dharma? What is the passion so effing compelling that I am willing to step through the fear? When you find that, you will find that you have a voice that belongs to you alone. Your unique DNA, expressed through your authentic passion, is exactly what the world is missing. Every single person has the ability to rock the world in their own way, provided they stop giving presentations and start having conversations about things that matter. I see the Standard Oil crowd and the titans of industry today, and I wonder, where is the gospel of wealth in their words? Are they speaking to elevate the working man, or are they speaking to inflate their own data? The world is weary of information. It is hungry for inspiration. It wants to hear from the man who has humbly grasped the secrets of the lofty structure of the universe and wants to share that beauty with his neighbor. As we move toward the latter half of this lesson, I shall speak of the tipping points of the future, how you can use the auditory story, the visual energy, and the kinesthetic connection to move the mountains of the modern age. But for now, I charge you, do not be an idle spectator to your own life. Do not let the diminution of your potential be the cost of your silence. Step forward. Find your headline. Have the conversation. For in the union of hearts found in sincere speech, we find the only true progress of the race. In my observations of the empire of business, I have often noted that the most successful managers are those who can speak to a man in the language he best understands. We are all born with 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And these are the gateways through which the world enters our consciousness. However, in the realm of influence and the gospel of wealth, these senses translate into 4 distinct communication languages. If you speak only one, you are like a musician playing a single note. You may be heard, but you will never create a symphony. To rock the world, you must learn to speak all 4. For only then can you provide every soul in your audience with a handle they can grasp. The first language is the visual, the language of energy and presence. In the world of industry, we know that the visual state of a works, the cleanliness of the machinery, the alertness of the men, tells the story of its management before a single ledger is opened. So it is with the speaker. This is the energy of a man like the great orators who do not merely stand behind a podium, but who radiate their purpose. When I think of this energy, I think of the vitality required to move a mountain of iron. It is a visceral thing. If you lack this visual energy, your words will fall like cold ash. But if you possess the authentic passion that lights your eyes and squares your shoulders, you communicate a tipping point of confidence that requires no translation. The second language is the auditory, the ability to translate the mystery of your thoughts into the living word of a story. I have always found that a well-chosen anecdote is worth 1,000 commands. When I speak to young men about the road to business success, I do not merely give them rules, I tell them of the struggles and triumphs I have witnessed. Ronald Reagan was a master of this auditory language. He could take the dry details of governance and turn them into a narrative that moved the blood. To be an effective trustee of your ideas, you must become a storyteller. You must take the analytical truths of your trade and clothe them in the warm garments of human experience, so that the ear of the listener is charmed while his mind is instructed. The third language is the analytical or the digital. This is the language of the bookkeeper, the engineer, and the scientist. In the Standard Oil crowd or the boardrooms of the steel industry, this is the language of integrity and accuracy. If you speak only in stories and energy, people may call you charming, but they will eventually say there is no there. You must have a foundation of credibility. You must know your costs, your yields, and your statistics. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon mission, he spoke the language of the engineer. He spoke of new metal alloys, precision better than the finest watch, and speeds over 25,000 miles per hour. He gave the analytical minds in his audience the data they needed to anchor their faith in his visual vision. Without this language, your tipping point will have no weight. The fourth, and perhaps most vital language, is the kinesthetic, the language of feeling and connection. This is the deep, resonant vibration that connects one heart to another. It is the Barry White or Morgan Freeman of the soul. In my essays on the personal relation in industry, I have argued that the progress of the race depends upon a union of hearts. Force and pressure are the tools of the weak, but cooperation and trust are the tools of the master. When you speak, you must tap into this kinesthetic depth. You must feel the common interest that binds you to the man in the back row. You must speak from your gut and your heart so that the listener feels the truth in his very marrow. This is the poetic connection that makes a speech more than a performance. It makes it a conversation with the soul. Why is it that 41% of the world is terrified of public speaking? It is because they are trying to speak only one language, usually the analytical, and they are doing so from a place of fear. They are worried about their performance and their data. They are acting like idle spectators to their own potential. But when you learn to speak all four languages, you are no longer performing, you are serving. You are using every tool at your disposal to create a union of hearts. You are translating your authentic passion into a form that every sense can perceive. I remember the Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. She possessed an auditory tone that shook the world. When she spoke of her faith in the Constitution, she was not merely reciting a legal document. She was speaking from a kinesthetic depth that made every citizen feel the solemnness of the moment. She used her visual energy and her analytical grasp of the law to create a tipping point that catalyzed a nation. She did not give a speech, she had a conversation with the soul of America. In the business world, we say that cooperation and trust multiply results. The same is true in communication. When you speak all four languages, you are inviting your audience into a cooperative experience. You are giving the visual thinker an image, the auditory thinker a story, the analytical thinker a fact, and the kinesthetic thinker a feeling. You are building a web of connection that makes the terrors of fear irrelevant. You are no longer one man standing against a crowd. You are a trustee of a truth that belongs to all of you. I have seen the world changed by such words. I have seen the tipping points created by men and women who dared to share their authentic passion. Whether it was Lou Gehrig expressing his gratitude or Winston Churchill offering his blood, toil, tears, and sweat, these moments happened because the speaker spoke with their entire being. They did not hide behind a script. They stepped into the light and shared who they were. You have within you 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy, as my friend Einstein suggested. This energy is your Dharma, your unique purpose. But this energy is useless if it remains trapped in the subconscious. You must give it a voice. You must learn the languages of influence so that you can distribute the wealth of your ideas for the benefit of the race. Financial independence is earned slowly through service, patience, and mastery, and so is the mastery of the platform. Do not be discouraged if your first attempts are feeble reflections of your intent. Keep your aim unwavering. I charge you to look at your life and ask, am I speaking all four languages? Am I providing the energy, the story, the fact, and the feeling? If you are petrified, remember that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Step through that fear. Find the headline of your heart. Have the conversation. For the world is not changed by presentations. It is changed by the living word of a man or woman who is authentically passionate about making the world a better place. In the remaining parts of this lesson, I shall speak of the promised land of communication, the ultimate tipping point where matter and energy, word and spirit become one. I shall show you how to use your unique DNA to leave a legacy that, like the Grand Canyon, the ages cannot mar. But for now, take these 4 languages and begin to practice them in the small events of your daily life. For he who is faithful in the little things shall be made ruler over many. In my volume, The Empire of Business, I have often remarked that the progress of our civilization is not a steady, unbroken climb, but a series of great leaps, tipping points where the old order gives way to the new. These leaps are almost always precipitated by the power of the spoken word. We have examined the languages of communication and the architecture of the mind, but now we must look at the historical record to see these laws in action. We must understand how a single voice, fueled by authentic passion and guided by an unwavering aim, can convert the retreat of a nation into a triumphant advance. Let us return to my friend Theodore Roosevelt. In 1903, the Grand Canyon was a prize for the speculator. Men of small character, who saw only the gold and not the glory, wished to mar that sublime work of the ages for a Disneyland of profit. But Roosevelt understood the gospel of wealth in its truest sense, that the beauty of the earth is a trust held for the benefit of all. When he said, "Leave it as it is," he was not merely giving a command. He was speaking from a kinesthetic depth that resonated with the soul of the people. His words were a headline that shifted the consciousness of a nation. He proved that cooperation and trust in the preservation of nature multiply the riches of the spirit. Then consider the dark days of 1933. Franklin Roosevelt stood before a people paralyzed by a nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror. This was the subconscious mind of a nation turned against itself. He did not lead with a technical lecture on the Standard Oil crowd or the intricacies of the banking system. He spoke a truth that bypassed the intellect and struck the heart. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. These were tipping point words because they addressed the root of the crisis, the spirit. He understood that integrity is the primary collateral of a leader, and his calm, wise tone provided the foundation of credibility that allowed a nation to begin the long climb back to prosperity. In my 60 years of observing men and events, I have found that the world is often changed more by essence than by data. Take the example of Lou Gehrig in 1939. He was a man of the working class, a man who earned his living through persistent effort on the diamond. When he stood in Yankee Stadium, petrified by the prospect of a speech, he was not a trained orator. He was a man of character, facing his final judgment day. When he said he was the luckiest man on the face of the earth, he created a tipping point in the human understanding of gratitude. He showed that financial independence and physical health are as nothing compared to the union of hearts found in true friendship and service. Why did these words rock the world? Because they were the result of an authentic passion that could not be suppressed. Lou Gehrig did not give a performance. He had a conversation with 60,000 friends. He struck the word speech from his mind and replaced it with thanksgiving. This is the secret I wish for every young person to grasp. The terrors of fear only have power over you when you are thinking of yourself. When you are thinking of your Dharma, your duty to share a truth, the fear evaporates. You become a vessel for the 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy that resides in your soul. I recall the words of Winston Churchill in 1940. He had nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. To the analytical mind, this was a poor bargain, but to the kinesthetic heart of Britain, it was the only headline that mattered. He used the auditory power of his prose and the visual energy of his resolve to create a tipping point against tyranny. He was a man who understood that the world would be a different place without the courage to speak the truth, no matter the cost. He earned the trust of his people slowly, through service and mastery, until his voice became the voice of the race itself. And what of John F. Kennedy? He was a leader who mastered all four languages of communication. When he challenged us to ask not what your country can do for you, he was appealing to the gospel of service. He was reminding us that we are allies, not dependents. But he also knew the power of the analytical detail. When he spoke of the moon, he gave us the numbers, the speeds, the temperatures, the alloys. He gave the subconscious a blueprint for the future. He was a visionary who understood that concentration is the first prerequisite of success. By focusing the unwavering aim of a nation on a single headline, he made the impossible a reality. I must also mention the Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. In the midnight hour of a national crisis, her auditory tone and kinesthetic depth provided a tipping point for the Constitution. She was not an idle spectator to the diminution of her country's laws. She spoke with an integrity that made her words more powerful than any political maneuver. She proved that a single voice, if it is authentically passionate about justice, can shake the world. Many of you today are scared of public speaking. You look at these figures and think they were made of different clay. I tell you they were not. They were men and women who humbly grasped at the secrets of character. They learned that public speaking is nothing more than having a conversation from your heart. They learned that words are the 7% and essence is the rest. They learned that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I have seen the Standard Oil crowd and the titans of industry attempt to lead through force and pressure. I have seen them fail. True leadership, true tipping point influence, comes only through a union of hearts. It comes from the man who sees himself as a trustee for the public good and speaks to his brothers and sisters with cooperation and trust. This is the gospel of wealth applied to the platform. Your unique DNA contained in every cell of your body is a lofty structure designed for a specific purpose. Your Dharma is to find that purpose and give it a voice. Whether you are speaking to a small committee or a vast stadium, the laws are the same. Speak all four languages. Master your facts so you have credibility. Tell stories so you have resonance. Connect with your gut so you have depth. And above all, let your authentic passion shine through your visual energy. The world is waiting for your words. It is waiting for the headline that only you can provide. Do not let the terrors of fear rob the world of your unique essence. Step forward, have the conversation, create the tipping point. For as Albert Einstein understood, the beauty and simplicity of the universe are reflected in the words of a man or woman who speaks from the soul. In the next part of this lesson, I shall delve into the mysterious power of the subconscious mind and how you can use the E=mc² of influence to move the hearts of men. We shall look at the dream of Dr. King and the mystery of Albert Einstein, and I shall show you how to reach the promised land of your own communication. But for now, take heart. You are a child of eternity, and your voice is a gift to the race. Use it with integrity, use it with service, and you will truly rock the world. In my quest to understand the lofty structure of all that there is, I have often looked beyond the ledgers of the empire of business to the laws that govern the stars and the atoms. We have discussed the mechanics of communication, the words, the tones, the four languages, but now we must address the seventh secret, which is the very soul of the matter. It is the secret of authentic passion. You may have all the analytical data of an Einstein and the auditory grace of a Reagan, but without the fire of a visceral, heartfelt conviction, you are but a cold engine without steam. To rock the world, you must possess a passion so compelling, so visceral, that it ceases to be an intellectual choice and becomes a spiritual necessity. Albert Einstein, a man who peeked behind the curtain of the physical world, once said that the most beautiful experience we can have is the sense of the mysterious. He saw that behind the complex machinery of the universe lies a simplicity and beauty that reflects a lofty structure. In the same way, the greatest speeches in history are those that tap into this mysterious sense of human connection. When you speak with authentic passion, you are not merely sharing information, you are vibrating in harmony with the universal mind. You are expressing a truth that your audience feels in their gut long before they process it in their head. Consider the tipping point created by Lou Gehrig. By the cold calculations of the analytical mind, a man facing a terminal malady has little cause for celebration. Yet because he spoke from a place of profound, authentic gratitude, he transformed a moment of tragedy into a monument of the human spirit. He did not give a presentation on his health. He had a conversation from his heart. He allowed his subconscious mind to radiate a truth that the 7% of his words could only feebly reflect. He proved that when a man is authentically passionate about his love for his fellow man, he becomes the luckiest man on the face of the earth, regardless of his circumstances. This is the power I wish for you to grasp. Many of you are terrified of public speaking because you are treating it as a performance where you might fail. But if you shift your focus to your Dharma, your unique purpose and passion, the fear loses its grip. In my volume, The Gospel of Wealth, I have argued that the man of wealth is but a trustee for the public. I tell you now that the man of passion is also a trustee. You have a headline within you, a unique DNA of thought that the world requires. To remain silent out of fear is to be a fraudulent trustee of your own soul. Think of the tipping points we have witnessed. Winston Churchill did not offer victory through easy data. He offered blood, toil, tears, and sweat. His passion for freedom was so compelling that it ignited the 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy in the hearts of his countrymen. He understood that the world would be a different place if he did not speak with a level of conviction that transcended mere words. He used his visual energy and his auditory mastery to create a union of hearts that no tyrant could break. He was not an idle spectator to history. He was its architect. I recall the words of John F. Kennedy at Rice University. He spoke of a mission to the moon, an untried mission to an unknown celestial body. He did not have the analytical proof that it could be done. He had only the authentic passion of a visionary. He committed the nation to a path of new metal alloys and unprecedented heat because he knew that we must be bold. He created a tipping point not through a speech, but through a shared conversation about the destiny of man. He spoke to the subconscious desire for greatness that resides in every soul, and the world was moved. And what of the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King? In that great gathering, he moved beyond his prepared notes, his data, and spoke from the mysterious depths of his heart. When he said, "I have a dream," he was not giving a presentation on civil rights. He was painting a visual image of a promised land where children are judged by the content of their character. His voice tone, filled with the kinesthetic resonance of a prophet, shook the world. He created a tipping point that continues to move us today because his passion was visceral. It was a Dharma that he was willing to die for. I have seen the Standard Oil crowd and the masters of industry attempt to lead through force and pressure. I have seen them build great fortunes, but I have also seen that force or pressure would only defeat the true progress of the race. The only lasting influence is that which is built upon cooperation and trust. When you stand to speak, you must seek this union of hearts. You must recognize that you and your audience are part of a web, a circle of common interest. You are not there to conquer them with your data, but to elevate them with your essence. Einstein's discovery that E equals mc squared teaches us that even a small amount of matter contains vast energy. I tell you that even a small, humble voice, if it is authentically passionate, contains the power to shake the world. Your unique DNA is a lofty structure designed to express a specific truth. Whether you are a bobbin boy or a titan, your voice is the vehicle for your Dharma. Do not let the nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror of the platform rob the race of your contribution. Financial independence is earned slowly through service, patience, and mastery, and so is the influence of the living word. You must master the analytical details of your cause so you have integrity. You must cultivate the auditory stories that make your truth resonant. You must maintain the visual energy of a leader. But above all, you must find that one thing that you are so effing passionate about that you simply must share it. When you speak from that place, the subconscious mind of your audience will respond with cooperation and trust. I charge you to look within. What is your headline? What is the mysterious truth that you sense behind the events of your life? Do not be scared to share it. The terrors of fear are but shadows that vanish when the light of authentic passion is turned upon them. Step on to the platform. Have the conversation. For in the union of hearts found in sincere communication, we find the promised land of our collective future. We find a world where man can only mar the beauty of nature, but where man can multiply the results of the Spirit through the power of the living Word. In the final parts of our journey, I shall speak of the ultimate tipping point, the moment when a man or woman realizes their Dharma and steps into the light of service without fear. I shall show you how to leave a headline that the ages will respect. But for now, remember, you are a child of eternity, and your passion is the divine spark that the world is waiting for. In my volume, The Gospel of Wealth, I have long maintained that the progress of the race is dependent upon a union of hearts, and that force or pressure would only defeat it. As we approach the conclusion of our lesson on the secrets of the great speakers, we must look at the final, most profound tipping point, the moment when a human soul realizes its Dharma and steps onto the platform of the world to lead its brothers and sisters toward a promised land. This is not merely a matter of communication. It is a matter of fulfilling the highest duty a man can owe to his fellows. It is the realization that your voice is a trust, and your passion is the capital you must distribute for the benefit of all. We have spent much time discussing the analytical data, the auditory stories, and the kinesthetic connections. But why do we seek these things? Is it to gain personal fame? Is it to accumulate the dross of gold? No, we seek them so that we may better perform our service. In the empire of business, the man who seeks only his own gain is a failure, no matter how much wealth he may amass. But the man who seeks the common interest of his neighbors, the man who uses his influence to convert retreat into advance for the race, that man is truly successful. When you stand to speak, you must be that man. You must be a reforming force at the head of your own small circle, leading the way with a wise and moral lesson. Consider the final tipping point of Dr. Martin Luther King. On the night before his passing, he stood before a people who were terrified and weary. He knew, perhaps through that mysterious sense of the subconscious, that his time was short. Yet he did not speak of his own fear. He did not focus on the terrors of any man. He said, "I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land." These were not just words, they were the essence of a life lived in persistent effort and unwavering aim. He created a tipping point because he was authentically passionate about a truth that transcended his own existence. He showed us that the promised land is not a physical place, but a state of the human spirit where cooperation and trust finally prevail. You may ask, Mr. Carnegie, how do I reach my own mountaintop? The answer lies in the Dharma we have discussed. Your unique DNA, which Einstein suggested contains 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy, is your map. Your authentic passion is your compass. Many of you are scared of public speaking because you are looking at the valley below, the potential for failure, the judgment of the Standard Oil crowd, the cold, analytical critics. But a leader must look at the horizon. You must ask yourself, what is the message that only I can deliver? What is the headline that will make the world a better place? When you focus on the service you are providing, the terrors of fear vanish. You realize that you are a trustee of a divine spark, and that spark must be shared. In my Talk to Young Men on the Road to Business Success, I always advise that concentration is the first prerequisite. This applies to your influence as a speaker. Do not try to be everything to everyone. Do not try to speak all languages at once without a headline. Find that one thing that is so effing compelling that it consumes your identity. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon, he was concentrated. When Roosevelt spoke of the Grand Canyon, he was concentrated. When Lou Gehrig spoke of his gratitude, he was concentrated. They were not giving speeches, they were having conversations about a singular moral truth. This concentration of authentic passion is what creates a tipping point. It is the E equals MC squared of the human spirit. Why is it that 41% of the world turns down opportunities to shake the world? It is because they have a false definition of what it means to lead. They think leadership is a performance of the ego. They think they must be actors who never make a mistake. But the subconscious mind of the world does not want actors. It wants integrity. It wants to see the personal relation in action. When you stand before an audience, remember that you are part of a web. You are allies, not dependents. If you speak from your heart and your gut, the audience will not judge your 7% of words. They will feel your essence. They will see that you are authentically who you claim to be, and they will follow you toward your promised land. I have seen the Standard Oil Company and the great corporations of my day rise and fall. I have seen that financial independence is a worthy goal, but only if it is used for the gospel of wealth. The same is true of your wealth of influence. If you use your auditory stories and your visual energy only to enrich yourself, you will die disgraced in the eyes of history. But if you use them to multiply the results of human cooperation, if you use them to protect the grand canyons of the soul and to heal the depressions of the spirit, then you are a true captain of erudition. You are a trustee for the progress of the race. I recall the words of Albert Einstein, who humbly attempted to grasp with my mind a mere image of the lofty structure of all that there is. He saw that matter and energy are the same. I want you to see that truth and voice are the same. Your Dharma is the energy, and your conversation is the matter. When they are unified through authentic passion, you create a tipping point that changes every single thing on the planet. This is not a mysterious miracle reserved for the few. It is a law of nature available to every bobbin boy and every titan who is willing to step through the fear. As you prepare to give your next conversation, I want you to remember the Lou Gehrig day of your own life. You may feel like backing away. You may feel that you can't do this, but remember, they are all here for you, my friend. Your audience is not your enemy. They are your brothers and sisters in the web of life. They are waiting for you to lead them. They are waiting. In my volume, The Gospel of Wealth, I have long maintained that the progress of the race is dependent upon a union of hearts, and that force or pressure would only defeat it. As we approach the conclusion of our lesson on the secrets of the great speakers, we must look at the final, most profound tipping point, the moment when a human soul realizes its Dharma and steps onto the platform of the world to lead its brothers and sisters toward a promised land. This is not merely a matter of communication. It is a matter of fulfilling the highest duty a man can owe to his fellows. It is the realization that your voice is a trust, and your passion is the capital you must distribute for the benefit of all. We have spent much time discussing the analytical data, the auditory stories, and the kinesthetic connections. But why do we seek these things? Is it to gain personal fame? Is it to accumulate the dross of gold? No, we seek them so that we may better perform our service. In the empire of business, the man who seeks only his own gain is a failure, no matter how much wealth he may amass. But the man who seeks the common interest of his neighbors, the man who uses his influence to convert retreat into advance for the race, that man is truly successful. When you stand to speak, you must be that man. You must be a reforming force at the head of your own small circle, leading the way with a wise and moral lesson. Consider the final tipping point of Dr. Martin Luther King. On the night before his passing, he stood before a people who were terrified and weary. He knew, perhaps through that mysterious sense of the subconscious, that his time was short. Yet he did not speak of his own fear. He did not focus on the terrors of any man. He said, "I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land." These were not just words, they were the essence of a life lived in persistent effort and unwavering aim. He created a tipping point because he was authentically passionate about a truth that transcended his own existence. He showed us that the promised land is not a physical place, but a state of the human spirit where cooperation and trust finally prevail. You may ask, "Mr. Carnegie, how do I reach my own mountaintop?" The answer lies in the Dharma we have discussed. Your unique DNA, which Einstein suggested contains 50,000 atomic bombs worth of energy, is your map. Your authentic passion is your compass. Many of you are scared of public speaking because you are looking at the valley below, the potential for failure, the judgment of the Standard Oil crowd, the cold, analytical critics. But a leader must look at the horizon. You must ask yourself, what is the message that only I can deliver? What is the headline that will make the world a better place? When you focus on the service you are providing, the terrors of fear vanish. You realize that you are a trustee of a divine spark, and that spark must be shared. In my Talk to Young Men on the Road to Business Success, I always advise that concentration is the first prerequisite. This applies to your influence as a speaker. Do not try to be everything to everyone. Do not try to speak all languages at once without a headline. Find that one thing that is so effing compelling that it consumes your identity. When John F. Kennedy spoke of the moon, he was concentrated. When Roosevelt spoke of the Grand Canyon, he was concentrated. When Lou Gehrig spoke of his gratitude, he was concentrated. They were not giving speeches, they were having conversations about a singular moral truth. This concentration of authentic passion is what creates a tipping point. It is the E equals MC squared of the human spirit. Why is it that 41% of the world turns down opportunities to shake the world? It is because they have a false definition of what it means to lead. They think leadership is a performance of the ego. They think they must be actors who never make a mistake. But the subconscious mind of the world does not want actors, it wants integrity. It wants to see the personal relation in action. When you stand before an audience, remember that you are part of a web. You are allies, not dependents. If you speak from your heart and your gut, the audience will not judge your 7% of words. They will feel your essence. They will see that you are authentically who you claim to be, and they will follow you toward your promised land. I have seen the Standard Oil Company and the great corporations of my day rise and fall. I have seen that financial independence is a worthy goal, but only if it is used for the gospel of wealth. The same is true of your wealth of influence. If you use your auditory stories and your visual energy only to enrich yourself, you will die disgraced in the eyes of history. But if you use them to multiply the results of human cooperation, if you use them to protect the Grand Canyons of the soul and to heal the depressions of the spirit, then you are a true captain of erudition. You are a trustee for the progress of the race. I recall the words of Albert Einstein, who humbly attempted to grasp with my mind a mere image of the lofty structure of all that there is. He saw that matter and energy are the same. I want you to see that truth and voice are the same. Your Dharma is the energy, and your conversation is the matter. When they are unified through authentic passion, you create a tipping point that changes every single thing on the planet. This is not a mysterious miracle reserved for the few. It is a law of nature available to every bobbin boy and every titan who is willing to step through the fear. As you prepare to give your next conversation, I want you to remember the Lou Gehrig day of your own life. You may feel like backing away. You may feel that you can't do this. But remember, they are all here for you, my friend. Your audience is not your enemy. They are your brothers and sisters in the web of life. They are waiting for you to lead them. They are waiting for your headline. Ask yourself, what is my Dharma? And then speak with the visual energy of a man who has seen the glory of his purpose. Use the analytical facts to build your foundation of credibility. Use the auditory stories to charm the ear, and use the kinesthetic connection to touch the heart. The promised land of communication is a place where we no longer need presentations because we have integrity. It is a place where cooperation and trust are the only currency. It is a place where every voice contributes to the lofty structure of a better world. I encourage you, as I have encouraged the thousands of young men who have read my books, please step through the fear. Share your authentic passion, for in the union of hearts found in the living Word, we find the only true wealth that survives the ages. We are but children of eternity, and the ages have been at work on our souls. Do not mar your potential by remaining silent. Be bold, be authentic, and rock the world with the gospel of service. For when you do, you will find that you are not merely a speaker, but a trustee of the divine, and your words will live on as a tipping point for generations yet unborn. We come now to the final station of our journey. I have spoken to you of the empire of business, the gospel of wealth, and the personal relation. But all these structures of human endeavor find their ultimate meaning in the legacy we leave behind through our influence upon our fellow men. In my long life, I have seen that the man who dies rich in gold alone dies disgraced. But the man who dies rich in the living Word, the man who has used his voice to elevate the race and to create tipping points of moral progress, that man enters the halls of eternity with a surplus that no panic can deplete. As we conclude this lesson, I wish to speak to you of the final secret, the realization that you are not merely a speaker, but a trustee of the future. The world you inhabit today is much like the industrial landscape I navigated in the 19th century. It is a place of rapid change, of great Standard Oil combinations of power, and of a subconscious mind that is often gripped by the terrors of fear. But remember the lesson of the Grand Canyon. Man can only mar what nature has perfected, yet man can build what the spirit requires. Your voice is the tool for that building. Every time you step forward to have a conversation from your heart, you are laying a stone in the lofty structure of a better civilization. You are fulfilling your Dharma, that unique purpose which resides in your very DNA and which carries the energy of 50,000 atomic bombs. I have seen the tipping points of history: Roosevelt's preservation of the earth, Churchill's defiance of tyranny, Dr. King's vision of the promised land. These were not miracles of luck. They were the results of persistent effort and unwavering aim. These leaders mastered the 4 languages of communication: the visual energy, the auditory story, the analytical fact, and the kinesthetic feeling. But they did so with integrity as their primary collateral. They did not give presentations to impress. They had conversations to serve. They understood that cooperation and trust multiply results far more effectively than force or pressure. If you are petrified of the platform, I charge you to look at the headline of your life. What is the one truth you have earned through service, patience, and mastery? Is it the belief that all must be equal, allies, not dependents? Is it the realization that the progress of the race is dependent upon a union of hearts? Whatever it may be, let that passion be your reforming force. When you speak from your gut about something you are authentically passionate about, you are no longer an idle spectator to the diminution of the spirit. You become a leader. You become a trustee for the public good, distributing the wealth of your ideas, as I have distributed the wealth of my mills, to provide the bobbin boys and weavers of the world with the libraries of the mind. Albert Einstein taught us that the mystery of the universe is its simplicity and beauty. I tell you that the mystery of influence is its sincerity. If you are authentically you, the world will feel you. They will connect with your essence across the web of our shared humanity. You do not need to be a trained actor. You need only to be a sincere soul. As I wrote in the Gospel of Wealth, no more seeds of lifelong bitterness should be sown. Instead, use your voice to sow the seeds of cooperation and trust. Use your analytical data to prove your integrity, and your auditory stories to charm the heart. I see a future where every individual recognizes their power to create a tipping point. Whether you are a Texas congresswoman, a business leader, or a humble worker in the vineyard of life, your words can convert retreat into advance. Do not let the nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror of the crowd keep you from your promised land. Step into the light. Share your authentic passion. For in the union of hearts found in the living Word, we find the only true progress of the race. My time as a garrulous old man telling these random reminiscences is drawing to a close, but your journey is just beginning. You have the tools, you have the secrets, you have the Dharma. I encourage you, please step through the fear. Be the president, a great reforming force at the head of your own life and your own community. Make the world a better place through the service of your speech. For when you do, you will find that you are indeed a child of eternity, and your voice will echo through the ages, a tipping point for all that is good and true and noble in the human spirit. God bless you in your persistent effort, and may your unwavering aim lead you to the highest success. Thank you all so much.